So compliance is king in a sense. At least what I'm hearing you say, and I believe myself, that compliance maximizes the potential from you leaving the situation safely. But I would say it would seem that Philando Castro's situation would show that that's not always the case. From what I understand, it was a traffic stop. He had his significant other, a girlfriend and daughter, in the back. The police officer, we saw that part of the video, stopped him, and I don't know if the officer asked him or he volunteered, but he let him know that he was a registered gun owner with a concealed carry permit, and he had his firearm with him. And what the video shows from that is that the police went into a frantic defensive mode and pulled and pointed his weapon at that point. It seems it seems that Philando Castro had checked all the check marks for compliance and did not make it out of that situation. If I'm stopped, what does compliance look like in that situation when an officer, let's say, asked me if I'm carrying? Right?
As far as the compliance is concerned, um, you know, only thing I can tell you is the tactics that I'm saying will maximize you getting out of there. And if somebody is videotaping and you don't make it out, at least they can see that you complied with this individual and they did what they did. Um, you have some that are hateful and that are racist and they do what they do. And we know that. So um, complying to them is not with them is not always a guarantee. Complying with a good officer, and the vast majority are good. Complying with a good officer, more than likely, you won't have any issues. Now, with that officer that shot Castile, um, instead of going in Superman mode, if he had to just said, okay, you have a weapon, because apparently he told him that he had a weapon, and if he had to just back down, backed up, went to a place where he had cover, and then waited for backup to come there, right? Then he wouldn't have had to go in Superman mode where he had to use his weapon. Oftentimes, when people see that a lot of officers are around, generally speaking, it's for your benefit. Because if I have 6 officers around me and I'm dealing with you, most people comply when 6 officers are around. They just go ahead and get handcuffed and etc. The problem often occurs when it's one-on-one or two-on-one. That's when a lot of the problems occur. So, generally speaking, you try to get more officers there, say, and tell the dispatcher, I got an individual claiming he's licensed to carry. He is armed right now. I need some other units to come and assist me at this location. You go and get to a place where you are relatively safe. Tell them to stand by, and then you wait till everybody get there. Then you check for his license. He would be alive today if he had done that.
So let me ask you this. I have a few questions on that. The first one, generally, and I know laws and protocols differ from state to state, but is there a protocol for how officers are supposed to deal with an individual whom they stop and who declares or they find out that this person is a legally registered gun owner with a concealed carry permit and they have a gun on them? Is there a protocol for officers to deal with that? Because in the state of Virginia, the law is pretty liberal on open carry and things like that. So
More conservative,
it's
liberal, but I get you.
yeah, yeah, okay. They're free, not in the
Yes,
political
yes,
sense, but yeah.
I got
So
you. I
they
got you.
allow that. But
Yes.
my thing is, if I'm in Virginia and I'm legally doing this, I'm assuming the officer knows the law. So to me, it kind of, I'm scratching my head when they freak out upon hearing that I have a concealed carry permit and I have a weapon. It shouldn't that be normal? And is there a protocol usually that officers are educated with, equipped with on how to deal with people who are legal carriers?
If that were me now, again, I would use the same protocol as I said I would have done with Castile. Okay, so I always, when I stop people, I assume that they did have weapons.
Mm.
In my mind, I said, okay, this person quite possibly could have a weapon. So I would treat them as if they did. But it was no different than I would treat someone who did not have a weapon. All right. My thought process is they could have a weapon on them, so I'll treat them the same. If you tell me and confirm that you have one on, then I'll just get extra officers. And again, I worked in the city. So usually when you had certain runs, more than one unit would show up anyway.
Mm.
You have maybe a couple, 2 or 3 officers that's coming by, just having you back. On traffic stop, sometimes an officer would just come up. They see you there, they come and sit there and wait and make sure you're safe. So that's a way I would do it. You have your own protocol and say, listen, it's all about treating people fair and treating them the way you want to be treated. When I carry my weapon with me, I don't want somebody putting a gun in my face. Man, I'm telling you, I have a weapon, and I'm telling you, my ID is in my back pocket, and all you have to do is get it. Wait, if you're not comfortable, wait till you get somebody else to come up here, and then get it out of my pocket yourself, and you'll see. But so I don't know if police departments have protocols about how they deal with people that are legally armed or not.
Right.
But I would give them all the information. I would keep my hands up where they can see them, and I would make no quick movements. And I tell them, if you feel more comfortable with more officers on the scene, by all means, call them. Call them. I want that officer to feel comfortable with me.
Okay. So you should use or even request additional officers
Yeah, send somebody.
for your benefit. So I mean that's a shift in the way to look at this, because usually I know when I see a lot of officers, it seems like it's overkill or whatever the case is. But you're saying that if you're I guess in a state of compliance and things have not been escalated, you can use that to your advantage as far as the officer who made to stop being more at ease and more in control of the situation.
You would think and hope that, yes.
Right.
I do believe oftentimes if you have more officers on the scene, I know a lot of people be like, oh, that's just a bigger beat down. But I'm hoping if I got 6 officers on the scene, that prayerfully one of the officers is going to tell the truth. All right, now I know that's a problem, and one thing I would really love to see with George Floyd's situation is I want to see the original reports that those officers did. I want to know what they said, how they said what transpired before all these videos came out, who told the truth and who did not. That's what I want. I would love to know. But I'm hoping out of 6 officers, somebody's gonna tell the truth and say, yeah, he complied. That guy just shot him. I'm hoping that.
One of the things I learned from you on our phone conversation is that, again, you say that you teach basically get out of the situation alive. The way to maximize that is composure and compliance, right?
Correct.
Is the way to maximize leaving safely. Let me ask you this. In a situation which we've seen, at least from our viewpoint, a lot of times where officers have gotten it wrong, right? Let's say a person is composed and compliant. The officer gets it wrong. That person, whether it's the officer wants to search and they say no, they do anyway, or the officer oversteps their boundaries in whatever ways. I know you're an advocate of fight them afterwards, don't fight them on the scene, right? What are some of the ways that you can fight that? You're in an encounter, There's some things that were happening that weren't right. You were composed, you were compliant, but now you want to find some way to fight or address what happened during the stop. What should a person do?
Okay, so hopefully when these encounters go down, you have someone or there's a witness someone whereby, just like with George Floyd's situation, that's videotaping everything.
Okay.
That was excellent. There was some young people that videotaped that was right there on the scene. I saw a particular tape where they actually, you could hear some of the witnesses that were videotaping saying, get off of him, his life is coming out of him, etc. I don't know if you saw it or if everyone else saw it, but those type of videos are excellent. And I honestly believe because those were available, that's the reason why these guys got charged, arrested and charged. That's because they had that available. Because otherwise, the only thing that would have been available is what the police officers would have provided. Okay.
Right.
The other thing, besides a video, if you have a passenger that would videotape or audio or what have you, preferably you can get the officer's name and badge number. Now, I would not suggest that you ask him on the scene what his name or badge number is, but if you could even get the tag number of the car that he's driving or whatever the case may be, that you can identify him at a later date, okay? And when you do that, when you're released or when you are arrested, whatever the case may be, then you can go to the watch commander. Now, I personally would not go to the officers that's in the stations. And the reason why, most of the officers in the stations are friends with the officers that's on the street. And so they may try their best to either slow that investigation down and or toss it, right? If you talk to the watch commander and you ask for the watch commander and get their information, believe me, 9 times out of 10, the watch commander is not gonna put his neck out for another officer that's been out there in the street and doing something that they shouldn't do. And probably by now, most police departments have a situation where you can report a violation or a crime or what have you online. So if you know all that information that you have, if you don't feel comfortable in going to the police station, there should be a way online that you can actually file that same complaint. And in DC, when you file a complaint on someone, that case, that officer get a complaint number. They get a number, a tracking number that follows them, okay? So only thing I would say in giving this information, don't file a complaint on somebody that the situation didn't actually happen. This is only if they did violate you. If they violate you, they deserve what they get. But if they didn't, they don't.
So there is a means to file a complaint. It logs as a log a number and it follows the officers. And I get what you're saying. If the situation doesn't warrant a complaint, just because you didn't like the fact that you were stopped, but the officer was handled you respectfully and legally, then you shouldn't do it. Agreed. Or is a department obligated to give, due diligence to every complaint somehow and follow up on it?
So pretty much, yes, they do due diligence on MPD. They do due diligence on just about every complaint. I mean, most of them they will. So the legitimate ones, when officers are violating you, you end up black eye and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, man, we're gonna take those and they're gonna follow those up. MPD will follow them. The problem we have in this country, though, not everyone is every department is on the same level as far as following up and dealing with complaints like major metropolitan areas like Washington, D.C. You have other places that, you got a department with 10 people, everybody buddies with the chief, they go out drinking, you know, on certain days, and everybody are friends, so they will cover for everybody. For me, it would be wonderful if we could have one standard for every professional police department in this country. You have to live by the laws and standards that I have to live by. And
Right.
if you don't, then you suffer the consequences.
Is there a way that citizens can ensure accountability when complaints are logged? When people make complaints, I'm talking legitimate complaints, not
Yeah,
illegitimate
yeah.
complaints. When people make complaints, um, what does accountability look like at I'm calling it the precinct, but on the officer side, how is that officer followed up with? Is there anything the officer has to do as a result, or how does that reflect on his record? And how can we, as is there a way that citizens can look at an officer's complaint record to see if those protocols are being followed, that accountability is being enforced within the police department?
Okay, so I would venture to say there's not a way for you necessarily to see that. What I can say is um, the protocol is going to be followed because the officer has nothing to do with the investigation other than the fact that he's going to give his statement for what transpired dealing with the individual. Other than that, he or she is out of the loop. And you have an investigative team that's going to follow up with the complaint. And if the complaint is found valid, then 9 times out of 10, there's going to be some type of discipline behind that complaint. And usually it's going to be a more severe discipline, not necessarily loss of job, but suspension or, depending upon what was done. I used to be a union rep. I was a chief shop steward at my district for over 300 people, plus anybody else that was on the department that wanted to use me. And I can tell you for a fact that the discipline was definitely heavy. It was heavy discipline definitely when it warranted.
I want to
Mm-hmm.
circle back and ask you a question about the watch officer. You mentioned if you are going to make a complaint, it's probably not smart to go and deal with the officers that are, I guess, at the station. But you should. So do you go in there in the normal station and request the watch officer, or
Watch
how do you
commander.
the watch
Yeah,
commander? Is that what
yeah,
you do?
yeah. What you would do is request a watch commander. So let's say, for instance, the watch commander is not available at
Mm.
that particular moment because it's possible that he could be handling something on the street or what have you. They normally stay in the station, but if something serious is going on, they may venture out or what have you. Then what you do is ask for the highest ranking official that's on duty working at this particular moment. That's what usually is going to be either a captain or a lieutenant, and at the very least, it's going to be a sergeant.
Okay.
That's normally the case. But when I say don't go into the station, I'm talking about you can go to the station, but when you get into the station and the officers ask, can they help you? That's when you request the watch commander and say, I would like to file a complaint. I would like to speak to the watch commander.
Okay.
Okay. And then if you don't get that satisfaction, because I'm not trying to give this information to these officers there because they're colleagues, they're buddies, generally speaking, they're
Hmm.
buddies with these individuals that's working on the street, then okay, how do you file online? How do you file online? And that filing online would probably be my first option. I see
Okay.
when you go into the station, if you file a complaint, and especially if it's a legitimate complaint, I'm upset because somebody beat down my sons, etc. I'm coming in with an attitude. I'm not happy, and so I don't want to hear anything you saying that's negative to me getting what I desire.
Right.
So it may be better for me to do it online, and then I won't have to deal with those personalities.
Okay. So I want to go back to you. You mentioned uh, in the situation. You mentioned that the camera phone, because that's what's catching most of these, and that's how we're getting most of the results, because we're having the witness of the camera phone showing everything. But some years back, there was a big push for these body cams that police officers are wearing. So in the event that you have a complaint, I'm assuming all officers are armed or are equipped with body cams. Are we able to request the officer's body cam as a part of the investigation, or is that something that the department is going to do when a complaint is lodged? Are they going to go to that body cam so that there is not a he said, she said situation, and there's something objective to look at?
Generally speaking, you have to get those uh, through court order
Mm.
if you're going to get one. Oftentimes, see, the problem with the body cams are they have to be activated. Sometimes I think that voice can be voice activated, or sometimes the officer can activate it somehow. Again, that happened after I left, so I never used the body cam.
Mm.
But problem with that is sometimes it's not activated when it should be activated, so nothing is caught. Uh, Depending upon what police department you are with and where you're located, um, the information has to be stored and downloaded and everything like that. So not all departments can afford to
Sure.
pay for the cameras, because you have to also pay for it,
Storage.
the software and all that kind of stuff, having to download it, what have you. And then in some cases, some of the departments have just erased the information on there, and or just not shared the information. So the body cam's a good idea if everything worked perfectly, but it doesn't. It doesn't work perfectly. And since you brought that up, I'm going to add something that I did not say earlier. When you have your own camera, right, don't give that information to the police department. I would not do that, right? I have my information. I'm waiting on them to do their investigation. If the investigation is taking too long, or they're showing some information on their body cameras that uh, that doesn't show the true
Right.
situation how it occurred, then what I would do is, of course, have my attorney, and then maybe even leak it, because if you do it, unless it's a trial that's going on, it doesn't hurt to leak it to the media. But you always keep your original. Leak it to the media, and they're saying that nothing occurred, but this is actually what did occur. That makes them even look worse.
That's
So,
very nice.
but I would never give it to them, especially the original copy, and you don't have anything after that. I
Of
would
course.
never do that.
Okay. That makes sense. And the last question I want to ask with recording is, if you're detained and you've got someone with you, whether it's a significant other, friend, or whatever, who's not the subject of the investigation, and they begin recording, can officers take that phone away, or can they make them stop recording? What's the deal around that?
So I would say this to you. A few years back, in certain states, it was illegal to videotape police officers. And certain states was trying to fight to keep that. Um, I'm gonna tell you that I'm not totally aware if that's legal everywhere now.
Sure.
In most places it is, but you'll often see that officers, especially the bad ones, will try to get that camera from you. And you'll often see, and that happened with George Floyd for a little bit, that one particular officer tried to block the camera view of what was going on. So what a lot of times the officers on the scene would do is tell you to back up, and stand in front of the camera so you cannot record what's going on. So only thing I'd say to do is make sure you have that camera turned to horizontal, not vertical, horizontal. Back up, move some other location, and where you can tell the officer, sir, I'm not nowhere near the scene. I'm over here just videotaping. It's not illegal for me to do it. I don't know why you're following me and trying to restrict me from videotaping. All right. That's someone that you're talking to that's going to be somewhat somewhat reasonable. You have the kind that's going to snatch it and fight you and beat you down. Live, go home.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? Don't sit there and fight with them or what have you, because you eventually become a victim also. But make sure you videotape whatever you're videoing horizontally.
Okay. Home invasions / no-knock warrants, right? So we under a no-knock warrant or some type of investigation inside the home or anything under that umbrella. Most recent, and I'm skipping some, but Breonna Taylor, of course, and this is more true to the category area here. Uh, I'm guessing in Louisville, Kentucky, officers had a no-knock search warrant, a warrant for that house. They pushed their way in late night. They were not in uniforms, so the male in the house, whether it's her husband, fiance, or significant other, did what I thought he should have done. Is he got his weapon and he fired, which resulted in him being injured and her being killed while being in the bed. What is the deal with plainclothes entries like that? That's immediately confusing. If if you're kicking in someone's door and there's nothing about your ensemble that says, state authority. The natural response, if you're prepared to defend your home, is to do exactly that. So, can you talk about what you know on those type of situations?
The terrible thing in this particular case was they had the wrong address for one. And then the other thing was that they had people coming in that was not in uniform. It would be the best practice would to have somebody, even if you have the people not in uniform, to have a SWAT team or something of that nature that has a uniform on to go in first, and then the detectives or whatever they are, drug units come in after that so they can talk to the people and get information and all that kind of stuff. It was a perfect storm. You got a guy that has a weapon that has a registration for that weapon that was protecting his family, and then you got a police officer that think they're at a place where a drug dealer is, or apparently, I guess I give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if I should or not, but they think it's a drug addict, drug dealer, whatever the case may be, that's shooting at them. So it was a perfect storm, but I believe that storm could have been averted if they had knock and announce and all uniform, not all uniform, but uniform police officers that's entering. I think this would not have happened.
Yeah, that's a terrible situation. I feel like maybe police units should take another look at how they're executing these things, and you definitely want to make sure you get the address right. I mean, it's too the stakes are too high to not to not measure twice and cut once in situations, to make sure that you got it.
If you have a warrant where you have to knock and you give them time to come to the door, then you will find out that, especially in this particular case, I'm sure Breonna's significant other would have at least went to the door and, hey, you have the wrong address, or you had the whatever, okay? So when they rushed in, that's what set the events off. This is not the first time that with a warrant is a wrong address. It's just not, and it's not going to be the last time. But at least if you can wait till somebody attempts to come to the door, give them an opportunity to come. Because now you have to also remember on the flip side, you got a real criminal, you at the right place, and there's a real criminal. He's not trying to come to that door. And so you eventually going to have to get in there to do what you have to do.
For the advice that you gave here, I'm hearing 4 C's, right? Composure, compliance, cameras, complaints. Remain composed. Don't give anyone, whether it's a good or a bad officer, an opportunity to think that you're escalating. Comply with what they're asking you to do, even though it don't guarantee that everything's gonna go well, but it maximizes the chances that things will go well. Cameras, if there's someone around who's with you, if they can manage to record the encounter, is always good in the event that you need to lodge a complaint or something goes wrong and you need evidence beyond your own word. I want you to give any last minute advice that you would want to give the viewers in the climate we're in right now. What's going on? What words would you like to leave with everyone?
Well, one thing I would like to leave is, and I know people get upset when they hear this, that not all cops are bad cops. And it is true. It is true. Not all cops are bad cops. But I wish some of my colleagues, retired and still working, especially those that are white officers, would speak out against some of this violence that are going towards Black people by the hands of the police. Now, oftentimes what they would say, now in this particular case, I'm talking about white officers, what they would say, they try to use it as if it was an individual case, and they don't see it as a systemic issue, which I believe it is a systemic issue. I can understand why they don't view it as a systemic issue, because it's something that they haven't studied up on, and it's something that they don't particularly believe because it doesn't happen to them or their group. But I wish they would talk to certain people, and I wish they would get their information to find out how things can happen systemically, racially in this country, even with the police department. It's not an individual issue. Yeah, he was a jerk, but there's a lot of Klansmen and people that are racist that are on departments. And unless you officers that are white and some Black that are good, unless you speak out and start speaking against some of the stuff that they do and some of the things that you see, then this thing will continue on. One thing I do hope, in closing, one thing I do hope and pray, that they can get some type of national standard that everyone has to police the same, and punishment will be the same. Take off these guard rails or these hedges that are around these police officers, that when they do commit murder or crimes or what have you, it's difficult to prosecute them. When you take that off of them and they realize, man, I may go to prison just like the next person, then some of that stuff they will stop, because a police officer does not want to go to prison. They do not want to go because they know what's waiting for them. So I will end it at that.